Hi everyone. This is a remote viewing 5-year forecast for a new cryptocurrency that we are calling CICO-5. This particular currency addresses a concern about cryptocurrency transactions that on the surface appears to be a need that will attract a significant audience. This is why we investigated it. Moreover, it currently is very inexpensive. It is possible that some or many investors may want to buy some of this currency. However, our results in this forecast, while not dire, are nonetheless not very positive. In my view, knowing which currencies may not turn out well is just as important as knowing which currencies will thrive in the future, which is the reason for publishing this forecast. We have done a great many remote viewing studies on new cryptocurrencies that we hoped would survive and thrive in the future, and in general, we have found that most of them do not do well in the long run. So far in our research, those currencies that appear to survive and thrive seem to be currencies that satisfy a particular need that is well targeted. Our CICO-1, CICO-2, CICO-3, and CICO-4 currencies seem to be such currencies. We are not going to add CICO-5 to that list. If you have purchased a year of CICO identities, which you get by purchasing one CICO, you will want to take note of this forecast as a currency that seems good in concept, but which may run into significant challenges during the next 5 years, according to our remote viewing data, which I will summarize for you in this video. CICO stands for Contemporary Initial Coin Offerings. Now, some cryptocurrencies that we study do not have initial coin offerings, but we still group them together in our CICO forecast if they are new and or very inexpensive and offer the potential for significant returns. Again, the purpose of our CICO forecast is to attempt to use remote viewing in the context of our economic forecasting methods to determine the likelihood that a cryptocurrency will survive and thrive into the future. We are trying to focus on cryptocurrencies where their initial cost per coin is generally small and their potential for growth is significant. We offer our CICO forecast free to the public to watch as videos on YouTube, but the real name of the currency in the forecast has been changed so that the name referenced in the video is fictional. Potential investors can watch the forecast to see if they want to purchase the actual identity of the currency during the forecast period. While we have begun our CICO forecast by publishing results for coins for which we obtained positive results, our intent is to publish a wider range of forecasts. We have moved to something that is more like a subscription model, where those people who purchase one of our CICO forecast identities also get a year of other CICO identities free of additional charge. This allows us to share our results that are not good, which theoretically allows people to dump currencies from their portfolios that look like they will not survive. But again, in our research, some currencies did come back with very strong and positive results. For these CICO studies, we normally probe for adoption, and that is whether a significant number of people and institutions start to use the currency. The theory is that if the currency survives and people use the currency, then the price of the currency should increase over time, and that would make it a good investment. So let me outline what we did with this study for CICO-5. This experimental design has two parts for the target, which is what the viewers are supposed to perceive. The first part is known now, and that is a base surface that has unique topographical elements. The second part of the target is made up of additional elements that are added to the target after the end of the forecast period using CGI software. We have a video on our website on the Farsight forecasting method that was used for this study, and that video describes how this all works. All of the viewers described the currently verifiable elements of the base surface for the target well, which in this case is either an image of the Isles Ice Shelf or an image of Mount Kilimanjaro, depending on which image was assigned with each particular viewer. Moreover, all of the viewers had similar or corresponding numbers of elements added to that base surface, and those results tell us how the currency will perform over the forecast period according to the rules of our experimental design. There are no dissenting results among the 3 remote viewers employed in this investigation. In our studies, there are a possibility of up to 11 elements that can be placed in a target using CGI software 5 years in the future, and our remote viewers are describing what the target looks like in 5 years after it is assembled using CGI software. The rules of how those elements are employed in the target creation process exist now, and those rules are tied to how the currency performs during the forecast period. So when our viewers describe what the target looks like in the future, we know how the currency performs. For CICO-5, our 3 viewers described the future target as having between 1 and 3 additional elements out of 11 possible elements, with 2 viewers only perceiving 1 additional element added to the base target. This is not a large number of added elements. Normally, targets that have at least 3 to 4 added elements are good indicators of positive growth. Now, some of our past CICO forecasts have had up to 9 additional elements. On the other hand, we do not have an indication that CICO-5 disappears completely at the end of 5 years. Finally, we utilized a modified and aggregated version of temperature probe analysis for this CICO. Temperature probe analysis is normally used to obtain direction indicators for specific timelines, such as week to week, month to month, or year to year. The aggregation method helps us centralize the timeline measurements so that we have one measure for the entire forecast period rather than week to week or year to year. This tends to increase the accuracy of the temperature probe analysis, and it allows us to obtain an independent measure for the aggregate CICO change. We can then compare this with the measure obtained using complexity analysis. For CICO-5, the aggregated temperature probe analysis matches the complexity analysis. More specifically, there are 24 measures for temperature that were mapped to changes in adoption for this currency. Of the 24 measures for temperature, there are 14 positive and 10 negative indicators. The positives outweigh the negatives, but not by much. If you weigh these measures by the actual perceived temperatures, then the numbers are 29 positive and 14 negative, which is approximately a 2-to-1 ratio. By our standards, that is not a big difference. Thus, the aggregated temperature probe analysis corresponds with the complexity analysis to indicate that this CICO survives over the next 5 years, but it does not appear to experience a dramatic surge in adoption. Nonetheless, the temperature probe analysis suggests that increases in adoption begin during the second half of the forecast period. So if I personally had some of this currency, I would probably wait about 3 years before trying to sell it. That is not a recommendation, it is just what I would probably do personally. Finally, we analyze the types of activity that the viewers describe for the CICO targets. The types of activity have positive or negative meanings, and they also indicate the strength and rapidness of the movements involved with the currency. For this CICO, 2 sessions had minimal activity, and 1 session reported downward movement activity. This tends to correspond with the complexity analysis and the aggregate temperature probe analysis in the sense that there is no dramatic upward movement in adoption. So, our remote viewing results are modest at best for CICO-5. This does not guarantee that the currency will perform as we have described over the next 5 years, but given that we now have multiple remote viewing sessions done by very experienced remote viewers that all indicate that the currency's future performance is modest at best, this suggests that the future timelines for this currency are in general not disastrous, but also not particularly strong. One last point. This currency is currently inexpensive. Some people may want to buy a small amount of it as a highly speculative, risky investment. Others who may already have it in their portfolio may want to get rid of it. After 3 years' time, some gains may be possible. While we don't see a lot of people adopting this currency, there does appear to be some modest growth in the community that uses it after a few years' time. Again, this is not a recommendation, just an observation that seems to correspond with our data. And again, we probe for adoption, not prices. We are interested in whether or not people use the currency in the future. Remember also that this is not day trading where you buy in the morning and sell in the afternoon, and the exact timing of the upward and downward movements need to be known down to the hour or minute. Remind yourself that this is a 5-year forecast. And remember our disclaimer. No one at Farsight is a licensed financial advisor. We are practitioners of remote viewing, and we are using remote viewing to explore new realms, including financial forecasts. So anything that anyone at Farsight does that relates to using remote viewing to predict financial or economic outcomes of any type, including the selling prices of cryptocurrencies, stocks, commodities, or anything else, is done for entertainment and educational purposes only. Everyone doing investments are doing so at their own risk. Nonetheless, these efforts are truly interesting on a grand scale, and I personally believe that after we do this for a while, it will be hard for anyone to ignore the reality of remote viewing. As I have said in the past, may you follow your own intuitions, make wise investment decisions, and become rich. Thank you for supporting our efforts at Farsight. Together, we will change the world for the better. I am Courtney Brown, Director of Farsight.